All right, welcome back, everybody. Today we are going to be diving deep, really getting into it, with Adobe's Q4 2024 earnings.
Yes, we're looking at why their stock, took a bit of a dip even though they had record revenue for the year. We've got all the reports, all 4 quarters of 2024 right here, and we're going to be like dissecting them.
We're going to look at everything. Right, so revenue, margins, cash flow, even try to get a feel for management's tone. How are they feeling about things? Is that
Yeah,
changing?
exactly. And we'll see if we can pinpoint what it was that might have spooked some investors because the numbers, at first glance don't look that bad.
Yeah, let's start there, right? Big picture, Adobe, record revenue, $21.51 billion for the full fiscal year 2024. That is an 11% increase year over year. Sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, no, if you just saw that headline, you'd think things are, going great. But like you said, we got to go deeper, especially when you look at the guidance for fiscal year 2025. That might give us some clues.
Guidance.
Yeah.
The crystal ball, I guess, of Wall Street. So what did Adobe predict about the future that might have had investors, hitting that sell button?
Well, their guidance for Q1 of 2025 for digital media net new ARR, annual recurring revenue, they're saying it'll be like between 450 and $500 million.
Okay.
But think about this. In Q4 of 2024, they achieved $578 million. So that's a pretty steep drop off. Could mean, slower growth in their most important part of the business.
Whoa, yeah, that is a pretty significant difference when you put it like that. As new recurring revenue coming in. Okay, I'm starting to see why people might be a little nervous. Was there anything else in Q4 specifically that might have contributed? Did they miss any other expectations?
Yeah, they did. Revenue, for example, came in at $5.61 billion, which, okay, it's a bit above their guided range of like $5.50 to $5.55 billion.
Yeah.
But honestly, the market usually expects companies like Adobe to, really blow those numbers out of the water, to beat and raise, as they say.
So it's not just about like meeting expectations. You got to go above and beyond, especially for a company like Adobe, right? Leading the pack. Okay, but revenue being off by, a tiny bit. That doesn't seem like a five-alarm fire. Was there something else, something maybe a little harder to measure?
That's where we really have to read between the lines, analyze the tone that management is using. Think back to those earnings calls, Q1, Q2, Q3. Lots of energy, right? Especially when it came to their AI stuff, Firefly, Gen Studio. They were super hyped about AI's potential to change the game.
Oh, yeah, totally. All about that AI hype train.
Right. But then you get to the Q4 earnings call, and things are a little quieter, still positive about AI, but way less, this is going to revolutionize everything, and more about we need to see how this translates into real revenue.
Interesting. So it's like they're admitting that maybe AI isn't this like a magical solution to all their problems, at least not right now.
Yeah, you really do have to pay attention to those subtle shifts in tone. For sure, because investors pick up on that stuff. They want to see a clear plan for how you're going to make money, especially with something that everyone's talking about, like AI.
Okay. So we've got maybe some slower growth on the horizon, revenue expectations maybe not quite met, and a change in how management's talking about the future. Anything else we need to add to that mix?
Well, there's always risks to consider, right? Segment risks, financial risks. Adobe, they've got a bunch of different business segments. Some of them might be facing tougher challenges than others.
Right, of course. Not a one-trick pony. So where are those potential trouble spots, you think?
Well, one area to watch is their document cloud. It includes Acrobat, that stuff. Now, they've had crazy good growth there, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
By the end of fiscal year 2024, their document cloud ARR hit $3.48 billion. That's a 23% jump year over year.
23%. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what's the problem?
Problem is, they're facing more competition in that space now.
Yeah.
Document productivity, e-signatures. More companies are getting in on that game. So it could get harder for Adobe to, keep raising prices and keep growing at that crazy rate.
Ah, so even their star player,
Yeah.
right, might be hitting some roadblocks. Okay, that makes sense. Now, we've talked a bit about AI in general, but let's dig a little deeper there. Adobe's been pouring money into this stuff.
Right.
But did their AI projects actually live up to all the hype in 2024? Did they bring in the money that everyone was hoping for?
That's a really good question, and it's one that we're going to get into as we, walk through these different quarters, because there are definitely some interesting trends there.
Okay, so let's rewind back to the beginning of 2024. What was the sentiment like, surrounding Adobe's AI initiatives in Q1?
Yeah, in Q1 it felt like there was a lot of energy, around those new AI features, especially Firefly. It was pretty new then. And they were reporting like over 2 billion, can you believe that? 2 billion Firefly-powered creations across their different tools, which shows like massive adoption. People were really using it.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot. But were they like actually making any money from it at that point?
They were starting to. They talked about like some early success monetizing their AI assistant, especially within Document Cloud. It wasn't like a huge moneymaker yet, but it was a good start.
Okay, so some promising early signs. Then how did things look in Q2?
Q2 was like where the AI story really, really took off, I think.
Yeah.
That's when Adobe announced that Firefly had been used to generate over 9 billion images across their creative tools. And they were like really emphasizing the, strong customer interest they were seeing in AEP AI Assistant, their generative AI tool, which is for like marketing people.
Yeah, yeah, right. It sounds like the hype train was at full speed, right? But Q2, did they share any like actual numbers about how AI was impacting their bottom line?
Yeah, they did. They highlighted some interesting financial wins related to AI. Like for example, they had a record Document Cloud revenue in Q2, which hit $782 million. That's a 19% jump, compared to the year before.
Oh.
And they added a record $165 million of net new Document Cloud ARR. And they said, they were pretty clear that they attributed at least some of that growth to their AI assistant.
Okay, so there's some like solid evidence that AI was starting to have a real impact. What about Q3? Did they keep that momentum going?
Q3 was more about innovation, I would say.
Aye.
They introduced like this brand new Firefly video model at the IBC conference, and they were, emphasizing how it was commercially safe and easy to integrate. They also pointed out that Firefly had now, powered over 16 billion creations across all their tools.
So the user numbers, kept climbing, and they were, clearly still investing a lot in these new AI features. But we know that things, started to shift a bit in Q4, right? What happened there?
Yeah, in Q4 they launched a more expensive, premium version of Firefly for creative professionals. It included that new video model, remember?
Right.
But the way management was talking about things, it felt different. It was definitely more like cautious, less about AI being, this revolution and more about like, okay, we need to make sure that all this interest turns into actual sales, into revenue growth.
There's like a more grounded tone.
Yeah.
Trying to bring things back down to earth a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's worth noting that Q4 was also, when they gave that guidance for fiscal year 2025, which was, a bit lower than people were expecting.
Right, right. We talked about that earlier. So it's like a few things happened all at once. The lower guidance, the maybe not quite hitting those revenue expectations, and then this change in tone where management started, sounding a little less, I don't know, like certain about AI,
Yeah.
at least in terms of its immediate impact on the bottom line. I can see how that might have, made some investors nervous.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, the market's always looking ahead. So even though Adobe had a like record-breaking year in 2024, people were already starting to wonder, okay, what about 2025? What's next?
Yeah, I think that's a good takeaway. Even with a strong year behind them, there are still some question marks. So what does all this mean for, the average person, for our listeners? What should they be like really paying attention to when it comes to Adobe?
Yeah, what are those key takeaways? Those things they should be, thinking about as they look at Adobe and maybe make their own decisions. All right, so actionable insights, right? First thing, you gotta really focus on how Adobe's gonna turn all this AI excitement into like cold, hard cash. We saw the user numbers, lots of people using it, but the revenue picture, it's still a little fuzzy.
Yeah, it is.
So watch those earnings reports. Look for, real signs that they're converting all that buzz, all that hype into actual money. Things like average revenue per user. Are those numbers going up? Are they offering like different pricing tiers, different levels that maybe unlock more AI features? That kind of stuff.
Right, because at the end of the day, that's what matters, right?
Right.
The bottom line. What else should people be watching?
Definitely keep a close eye on how the Document Cloud is doing. Remember, more competition there now, which, could mean slower growth, maybe less pricing power. Who knows? So see if they're, continuing to come up with new stuff, new features that really set them apart in that market.
Okay, yeah, so track those competitive dynamics, right? See how they're staying ahead of the pack. Anything else? Any final thoughts?
It's easy to get caught up in the shiny new stuff like the AI, but don't forget about Adobe's core business, right? The creative tools, the document productivity stuff, that's like the foundation of their success. So watch how they're weaving AI into those core products. Is it making people use them more? Is it leading to like brand new ways to make money?
Such a fascinating story. Trying to figure out how all these different pieces fit together. This is just the beginning, right?
Right.
We're going to be watching closely to see, how this all plays out for Adobe in the next year, in the next couple of years. Who knows?
Exactly. And for all of you listening, stay informed.
Yeah,
Keep digging into the data. Make your own decisions, right? Don't just take our word for it.
that's right. Knowledge is power, and we're here to help you get that knowledge. So until next time, happy diving, everybody.
Closing disclaimer. Thank you for listening to Deep Dive to Earning Calls. Before we wrap up, I want to remind everyone that this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The insights shared are based on my analysis and supported by advanced AI-generated insights. While I aim to provide accurate and thoughtful commentary, the information shared may not always be complete or free from error. I am not a financial advisor, and this podcast does not constitute financial, investment, tax, or legal advice. Always do your own research, consult a licensed professional, and carefully consider your personal financial situation before making any decisions. Investing involves risks, including the potential loss of your principal. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode.